9 books this month, and I'm so excited. I've never read that many books, well, and listened to, in 1 month. So let's talk about it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Amy, and I am so excited to be starting a YouTube channel. This is my first time ever doing something like this, so please be patient with me, and please feel free to leave comments down below, suggestions, and follow me on social medias for more content. I want to jump right into this video, so I will write more down below in the caption. So the first book I read and listened to was Death at Breakfast by Beth Goocham. So it says, indulging their pleasure in travel and new experiences, recently retired private school head Maggie Detweiler and her old friend Hope Babin, are heading to Maine. Their trip to attend a weekend-long master cooking class at the picturesque Victorian-era Mountain Inn is an experiment to test their compatibility for future expeditions. Hope and Maggie have barely finished their first aperitifs. When the inn's tranquility is shattered by the arrival of Alexander Antipus, his wife, and her actress sister. Imperious and rude, these Hollywood one-percenters quickly turn the inn upside down, with their demanding behavior igniting a flurry of speculation and gossip among staff and guests alike. But the disruption soon turns deadly. After a suspicious late-night fire is brought under control, Alex's charred body is found in the ashes. Enter the town's deputy sheriff, Buster Babin, Hope's long-estranged son, and Maggie's former student, a man who's finally found his footing in life. Buster needs a win, but he's quickly pushed aside by the big boys, senior law enforcement and high-powered state attorneys, who swoop in to make a quick arrest. Feeling that injustice could use a helping hand, as could the deputy sheriff, Maggie and Hope decide that two women of experience equipped with healthy curiosity, plenty of common sense, and a cheerfully cynical sense of humor have a useful role to play in uncovering the truth. I think I rated this like a 2.5. I did not like this. I have my own physical copy. It's in my room. I can't find it. So I read along and I listened to the audiobook. Yeah, I didn't really like it. It sounds really good, and I got this in my library's book sale. So I was very excited to read it, and I wanted to read a book like this, but this one disappointed me. It was kind of boring. I didn't really care about the characters, and honestly, I wouldn't suggest it. The next book I read is The Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom. And this one says, what would happen if we called on God for help and God actually appeared? In Mitch Albom's profound new novel of hope and faith, a group of shipwrecked passengers pull a strange man from the sea. He claims to be the Lord, and he says he can only save them if they believe in him. Adrift in a raft after a deadly ship explosion, 10 people struggle for survival at sea. 3 days pass, short on water, food, and hope. They spot a man floating in the waves, and they pull him in. Thank the Lord we found you, a passenger says. I am the Lord, the man whispers. So begins Mitch Albom's most beguiling novel yet, one of bestsellers. I skipped a line, I'm sorry. Albom has written of heaven in a celebrated number of bestsellers, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and The First Phone Call from Heaven. Now for the first time in his fiction, he ponders what we would do if, actually crying out for divine help, God actually appeared before us. In The Stranger in the Lifeboat, Albom keeps us guessing until the end. Is the strange man really who he claims to be? What actually happened to cause the explosion? Are the survivors in heaven, or are they in hell? This story is narrated by Benji, one of the passengers, who recounts the events in a notebook that is discovered. A year later, when the empty life raft washes up on the island of Montserrat, it falls to the island's chief inspector, Jardy Lafleur, a man battling his own demons, to solve the mystery of what really happened. A fast-paced, compelling novel that makes you ponder your deepest beliefs. The Stranger in the Lifeboat suggests that answers to our prayers may be found where we least expect them. I rated this a 4. I love Mitch Albom's books. Well, this is the third book I read from him. I read The First Person You Meet in Heaven and then The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. And this is the third one I read of him, like I just said. And I enjoyed it. He never fails to impress me, and I would highly suggest this to anyone. The next book I read this month was Soulless Island by Meg Tilly. This is book 1 of the Soulless Island books. And, oh my gosh, I picked up Cliff's Edge, which is the second book, a couple years ago from also my book sale in my library. And I read it within a day, the fastest I've ever read a book. And I thought to pick up the first book. And these are standalones. You can read them in any order, which I love. But this one is about Maggie's story, and the second one is about her sister Eve's story. So this one says, just as Maggie Harris starts to get comfortable with the slower rhythm of her new life on remote Soulless Island, a car tries to run her down in the street. If it weren't for the lethal reflexes of her deliciously mysterious neighbor, Maggie could have been killed, leading her to wonder who exactly Luke Benson really is. Luke thought he'd left the violence of the high-risk security world behind, but when Maggie's life is threatened, he discovers he will do anything to keep her safe, even moving her and her sister into his house with its state-of-the-art security features, but with secrets between them and an unknown menace stalking her heels. Luke will have to think fast to prove to Maggie that she can trust him with all her life and her heart. I love Meg Tilly's book so much because this is a contemporary romance, but also a mystery book. Oh my goodness. I adored it. I was never the biggest romance fan, but I picked up the second book, Cliff's Edge, because I'll show you the cover right here. Because the cover looks like it's a mystery thriller suspense book, and that's what I was looking for at the time. So I picked it up, and during that time, I wasn't reading the backs of any of the books because I was realizing that when I do, it's less likely that I will actually read the book because I judge a book so hard based off the back. And if there's like one little thing I don't like, then I wasn't reading it. So I started just really basing it off of the title and the cover of the book. And then I found out it was also a romance book mixed in with a mystery and thriller. And I thought that was the best combination. I never thought I would love it, and I do with all my heart. So I was finally able to read this month. I loved it. I rated it like a 4.5. I would highly suggest it. The next book I read, I actually listened to this. I read the last 3 chapters of the book. I was following along with the audiobook. But I was disappointed with this book, guys. I'm sorry. So the next book I listened to was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I heard so much good stuff about this book on so many people's TikToks and everything when this book went viral. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what else to listen to on Hoopla, so let me read this. This was one of the recommended books. Yeah, I did not enjoy it. So it says, what would you change if you could go back in time? In a small back alley in Tokyo, there's a cafe which has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years. But this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. And before the coffee gets cold, we meet 4 visitors, each of whom is hoping to make use of the cafe's time-traveling offer in order to confront the man who left them, receive a letter from their husband whose memory has been taken by early-onset Alzheimer's, to see their sister one last time, and to meet the daughter they never got the chance to know. But the journey into the past does not come without risks. Customers must sit in a particular seat and they cannot leave the cafe. And finally, they must return to the present before the coffee gets cold. I feel like this book had so much potential. And was it okay? It was okay, but I did not enjoy it. I felt like this audiobook, like I couldn't get through the audiobook faster. I was struggling to care about the story and the characters. I feel like they could have gone more with the stories too. But I don't know. I didn't enjoy the book. And I was looking at some reviews on Goodreads. And I've only seen like a couple of people that agree with me, but a lot of people love it. So yeah, I rated it like a 2. I'm sorry, a 2 at most. So I just didn't enjoy the book. The next book I read in November was my first book by Miss Freida McFadden, Ward D. Oh! Okay. Let me read the back. So Ward D. Medical student Amy Brenner is spending the night on a locked psychiatric ward. Amy has been dreading her evening working on Ward D, the hospital's inpatient mental health unit. There are very specific reasons why she never wanted to do this, required overnight rotation. Reasons nobody can ever find out. And as the hours tick by, Amy grows increasingly convinced something terrible is happening within these tightly secured walls. When patients and staff start to vanish without a trace, it becomes clear that everyone on the unit is in grave danger. Amy's worst nightmare is spending a night on Ward D, and now she might never escape. I enjoyed this book. To be my first Freida McFadden book, I actually really, really liked it, and I rated it a 4. I have nothing more to say. I just thought it was good. I listened to this, and I followed along with a library copy. The next book I listened to was Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. I heard a lot of this too on Horror Talk, and honestly, it wasn't my favorite. Let me read the back to you. A romantic cabin getaway doesn't go exactly as planned. High up on the windswept cliffs of Pale Peak, Faye and Felix celebrate their new engagement, but soon a chorus of ghastly noises erupts from the nearby woods. The screams of animals, the cries of children, and the mad babble of 100 mournful voices. A dark figure looms near the windows in the dead of night, whispering to Faye. As the weather turns deadly, Felix discovers that his terrified fiancée isn't just mumbling in her sleep. She's whispering back. I've been wanting to read this book forever, and it was on Hoopla. No, I listened to this on Libby. And the summary sounded great. And don't get me wrong, it was okay. Just it wasn't my favorite. I didn't think it was creepy. But I feel like they could have taken like a darker and more scary approach with it. I don't know. I wasn't stuck to my seat listening to this audiobook. The next book I listened to was Sleep Tight by J.H. Margaret. I rated this a 3. The book was okay. I love the storyline. The characters were cool. But sometimes I understand why there's a lot of characters. Like, obviously, they're trying to look for the daughter. It's a police investigation and stuff like that. And there's a lot of kids involved and the lost children. But for some parts, I was like, okay, who's this again? What's this person doing? Maybe I wasn't paying attention as much as I should. I listened to everything. I could tell you everything about the story. It's just sometimes I mix up the people that were in each scene. I don't know. Let me read back. Beware of the one who got away. Father Silence once terrorized the rural town of Twisted Tree, disguising himself as a priest to prey on the most vulnerable members of society. When the police finally found his house of horrors, they uncovered 19 bodies and one survivor, a boy now locked away in a hospital for the criminally insane. Nearly 2 decades later, Father Silence is finally put to death, but by the next morning, the detective who made the original arrest is found dead. A new serial killer is taking credit from the murderer and calling himself the Outcast. The detective's daughter, Tess Claiborne, is a detective herself, haunted by childhood trauma and horrified by the death of her father and the resurgence of Father Silence's legacy. When Tess's daughter is kidnapped by the Outcast, Tess is forced to face her worst fears and long-buried memories. With no lead to follow, she travels back to Twisted Tree to visit the boy who survived and see what secrets might be buried in the tangled web of his broken mind. The blurb also sounds amazing. I would still highly suggest this to people that love like horror, thriller, detective work stories. I just rated it a 3. It wasn't my favorite, but it was still very good. I would still suggest it. The next one I read was my second book from Freida McFadden, which is Never Lie. Did you read it? You need to read it. That book was so good. In the beginning, I was like, okay, this is kind of like a little slow. I understand they're going through the house and stuff, but actually, let me just read it to you. Newlyweds Trisha and Ethan are searching for the house of their dreams, but when they visit the remote manor that once belonged to Dr. Adrian Hale, a renowned psychiatrist who vanished without a trace 4 years earlier, a violent winter storm traps them at the estate, with no chance of escape until the blizzard comes to an end. In search of a book to keep her entertained until the snow abates, Trisha happens upon a secret room, one that contains audio transcripts from every single patient Dr. Hale has ever interviewed. As Trisha listens to the cassette tape, she learns about the terrifying chain of events leading up to Dr. Hale's mysterious disappearance. Trisha plays the tapes one by one, late into the night. With each one, another shocking piece of the puzzle falls into place. And Adrian Hale's web of lies slowly unravels, and then Trisha reaches the final cassette, the one that reveals the horrifying truth. This book was so good, and you should listen to the audiobook because listening to it too was actually very good. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say without spoiling. I kind of figured out the end. I was like, okay, this is definitely like... But then the other part of the end, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Okay.
A few moments later.
Spoiler, if you've read the story, stay and listen. If not, skip about like 15-20 seconds. I figured who Ethan was. I was like, okay, he's definitely involved. Like, I knew who he was. Trish, I knew she must have been like a patient or something like that, but I didn't think it was her. Like, I was in the shower listening to that part, and I was like, I was shook. I was so shocked. My mouth dropped open, and I was like this for like 5 minutes in the shower. Like, it was so good. And then, okay, 15 seconds definitely passed. Like, skip another 15 seconds. When at the end she was like, my mom told me only one could keep a secret or whatever it was. And then I'm like, you have a husband right now. Like, you're willing really to kill him? Because he was getting worried because the grass wasn't really growing under the body. And I was like, wait, I was like, oh my gosh, you're really willing to kill your husband? You just had a daughter with him. Like, I'm pretty sure if he's kept it for this long, he's gonna keep it. But I don't know. She said he was worried. I don't know. That's crazy. Anywho, hi. If you were one of the people I didn't read it and skipped, just know I highly suggest this book. That one was, in my opinion, the best from Freida McFadden so far that I have read. And it's a very quick read, a very quick audiobook. So I highly suggest that one. That one's my favorite. I rated it like a 4.5. That's how good I thought it was. I don't think I've ever found like the perfect book. And I just rated it a 4.5 because the beginning was like a little slow and I was like, okay, I'm like, what's gonna happen? But then once we got like 50-60%, I was like, okay, this is good. It still draws you in though. It's really good, so just keep listening to it. It was a great read. The next book I listened to this month was Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. I listened to this with Gabe, and every month we read or listen to a book together, and this was our pick. So it says, the viral TikTok stalker dark romance, burning with high heat, hilarious banter, and a love story like you've never seen before. Can you handle the ride? I want someone with a soul as black as night, someone who would burn the world down for me and not lose a single minute of sleep over it. Trauma nurse Ali Capulici doesn't need any more kinks. She likes the one she's landed on just fine. To her, nothing can top the masked men she follows online, unless one of those men was shirtless, heavy tattooed, and waiting for her in her bedroom. She dreams about being hunted by one in particular, of him chasing her down and doing deliciously dark things to her willingly body. She never could have guessed that by sending one drunken text, those dreams would become her new reality. I want things most people don't, craving darkness and depravity instead of light and love. Josh Hammond has spent his life avoiding the limelight, but his online persona is another story. At night, he posts mass thirst traps for his millions of fans to drool over. But one follower has caught his eye, Allie. After reading a comment begging him to break into her house wearing a mask, he decides to take her up on her offer. Together, Allie and Josh live out their darkest fantasies, unaware that Allie has captured the attention of someone else, someone with a far more sinister intentions than a little light stalking. As Josh turns from predator to protector and the stakes heighten, he must ask himself how far he's willing to go for the woman he's obsessed with. I didn't know that's what this book was about before getting into it. This is one book I looked at the cover of on Hoopla, and I was like, this one looks good, let's read this one. And we did, and we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. The only thing I knew about this book was that what people were saying, like, if you love Butcher and Blackbird, read this book. And I want to read Butcher and Blackbird. I haven't yet. But I picked it up. I picked Lights Out up. And it was okay. The beginning, I was drawn into it. Like, the first 40-50% of the book, I loved it. It started out strong. It was so good. But then, like, the whole Brad thing, it started getting so boring to me. After, like, 60%, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I kept listening to it. It wasn't that bad. But I feel like so much more could have happened. They could have added more drama, like with his roommate. Like when he found out with Allie. I'm trying not to spoil here. Been a lot more drama. There was like none there. There could have been so much more, but it wasn't really it for me. Would I suggest it? Sure, but I would mention all the content warnings because I didn't know that going in. Next book I listened to is one that's been highly suggested to me, and that is my third book by Freida McFadden, which is The Boyfriend. I just finished it like November 29th or the 30th. I thought I was going to give this a 5 stars. For me, it was like a 3.5. So, The Boyfriend. She's looking for the perfect man. He's looking for the perfect victim. Sydney Shaw, like every single woman in New York, has terrible luck with dating. She's seen it. Men who lie in their dating profile, men who stick with her with a dinner bill, and worst of all, men who can't shut up about their mothers. But finally, she hits the jackpot. Her new boyfriend's utterly perfect. He's charming, handsome, and works as a doctor at a local hospital. Sydney is swept off her feet. Then the brutal murder of a young woman, the latest in strings of death. Across the coast confounds police. The primary suspect, a mystery man who dates his victims before he kills them. Sydney should feel safe. After all, she is dating the guy of her dreams, but she can't shake her own suspicions that the perfect man may not be as perfect as he seems. So, because someone's watching her every move, and if she doesn't get to the truth, she'll be the killer's next victim. I love Freida McFadden's books so far. Well, this is only the third book I've read of hers. The next one I want to read is The Housemaid. But I've heard so many good things about this. I've heard like so many 5-star reviews on it. And I feel like it was kind of predictable. And I felt like Sydney, she annoyed me. She didn't annoy me so much. But it was stupid. And kind of the stuff she thought. And I was like, some of the things were like really like big red flags, and she was like, oh no, it's okay. And I'm just like, your friend just died. Was that a spoiler? Okay, that's not a big spoiler. I'm sorry if I just spoiled it for you. It's not a big spoiler. You find that out like 20% of the way through the book, I think. It was like 20 or 30. I'm so sorry. But like, your friend just died 2, 3, 4 months ago, it was about. And they said he dates people like on Singe, they think. And then you're like, oh, Sydney would want me to go back to dating. And they know it's a doctor. And she goes to date a doctor on Singe. And then some of the things, like the red flags from him, and you just didn't like do anything about it. Like, I don't even know. That threw me for a loop, because I'm like, you're 34 years old, and like, I don't know. But I like how it went back to the present and the past, the present of Sydney and the past of a boy named Tom. And I maybe I was just annoyed with Sydney, but I kind of like predicted the ending, maybe because the ending, in a way, if you've read Never Lie, is kind of similar to this book, and I won't spoil it, I won't say anything, but if you read it, I think you'll know what I mean. So yeah, I rated it a 3. It was still very good. It's just she annoyed me a little bit, and the ending was kind of predictable for me. That's why I rated it a 3. But I would still highly suggest this book. And those are all the books I read in November. Let me know down below what books you think I should read for December, this month. Because by the time I'm posting this, I'm so sorry, I know it's going to be December. But let me know what books you think I should read this month. And I hope you enjoyed my video. See you next time.